its relevance in post-COVID era. We are truly delighted to have with us one of the most esteemed speaker, Dr. Shubhini Saraf, Head Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Dean SBPS, Babasaheb Bhimrao, Ambedkar University, Lucknow. Ma'am has 140 research publications, 2 applied patents, 6 books, 12 book chapters, 52 invited lectures in national and international conferences. Ma'am has received the UGC Fellowship for MPharm and PhD. She has been the recipient of Academic Excellence Award for 3 consecutive years as Director of Pharmacy Program BBDN-TM. Ma'am has also received the Senior Scientist Award 2012, Indian Medical Society Second Gandhian Young Technological Innovation Award 2013 as mentor. Award for Publishing in High Impact BBAU 2014, the ISRA Award for Excellence in Research 2015. She has also received the CSIR CMAP Award for Outstanding Research, International Women's Day Award from Basic Facility for Women 2016, Women in Education Leadership Award 2017, and Best Research Paper Award in Journal Pharmaceutics 2019. Ma'am is also the member of IPA, APTI, IPGA, Society of Pharmacovigilance, India. We are indeed fortunate to have you, ma'am. I request ma'am to deliver the talk. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amrita Yadav. In fact, I'm wanting to cut you short in the middle of that very elaborate introduction, but all the same, nevertheless, thank you. And thank you, Kiran ma'am, for thinking of me and giving me this chance to talk to all of you. 3D printing is something which I desperately feel since a very long time that it should be something which comes mainstream in the pharmaceutical profession. In the post-COVID era, more so, it should come mainstream. I hope all of you can hear me clearly and then I can start with my presentation. So I think the mics are muted.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then let us start with the presentation. My topic has been shared by Amrita ma'am, 3D printing and its relevance in the post-COVID era. Okay, so this is my university, Babasaheb Bhimrao Medical University, which is a central university in Lucknow. The good thing about my university is that it's only meant for postgraduate and PhD studies. So we do not have a lot of noise value, but then quietly we keep doing our work. So what is 3D printing? Three-dimensional printing is a manufacturing method in which objects are made by fusing or depositing material such as plastic, metal, ceramics, powders, liquids, or even living cells in layers to produce a 3D object. This is the definition. Now, trying to make this definition clear to you, suppose you have a 2D printer. What do you have? You have length and you have breadth. The moment we add height to it, it becomes 3D. So in the slide that I'm sharing with you, you can see this is the normal picture that we would have. And if it is a 3D printer, the height dimension also comes. So this process is also called additive manufacturing. Why do we call it additive manufacturing? Suppose we had a block of whatever material, let us say a polymer, and we start shaping the polymer by taking away material from it, that would become negative manufacturing because we are not adding, we are subtracting. So it is subtracting something from a big block. Over here, what are we doing? We are adding to make. So layer by layer, we are adding on something or we are fusing on something so that we are able to manufacture a 3D object. That is why it is called additive manufacturing. It is also called rapid prototyping because if we want to make a prototype of a big object fast, then the simplest, easiest method is a 3D printer. So it's also called a rapid prototyping method. or a solid free-form technology. Free-form means any sort of a physical form that you want to make as a solid, you can use this technology. So these three names along with 3D. So if somebody instead of saying 3D printing says AM or RP or SSF, then we should know what are we talking about. We're talking about 3D printing. Now, what is this basic setup and how does it differ from 2D printing? In 2D printing, the print head moves along the XY scale. But in this, the printer first moves along the XY scale plane and then it starts moving along the Z axis also. So what do you have? You have a third dimension, the length, the breadth, and the height, which is added onto it. Now coming to how we can do something about it. A three-dimensional form, how is it related to pharmacy? So, in case you have a radiographic image, let us say an X-ray. So, if there is a bone which you want to make as a three-dimensional figure, all you need to do is to take that X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI image and convert it into a digital 3D print file. And this 3D print file, when you attach it to a 3D printer, the 3D printer is able to give you that very object in those very dimensions that you desire. So on your screens, if you all can see, there is this radiographic image of the spine. And over here, you can see a vertebra. This vertebra, if you can see a number of points, I don't know if you all have big screens, you'll be able to see them. If you're using phones, you may not be able to see them. But every possible place which there is a contour, wherever there is either a depth or there is a contour in it, that is defined in the digital file that we want to feed into the computer. So every X, Y, and Z point that we need in that object, wherever the contour makes a change, those are the points which we take and give it into in the form of a 3D print file, and this along with whatever material that we want. Let us say that we want to make it of plastic, which is the simplest material that we can take, or some kind of a polymer that we want to take. So the printing ink that we are using over here will be polymer, and this 3D print file will get converted into a 3D object. So I'd like to share with you a video demonstration of the fabrication of theophylline tablet, which was used in the management of asthma using fused deposition modeling. So if you see this, then probably things will become even more clear to you, and it is definitely exciting. So I think we can together watch how the platform on which the tablet has to be made is coming up. This is how you are defining what the y-axis is going to be. Now the print head is moving along the XY axis, and the Z axis, the platform has gone down. So now the printer knows from where to where can it move while the printing takes place. So once this is done and the print file is already there in place, it will start printing with the material. Like in this case, it is a theophylline tablet. So a suitable polymer along with theophylline, the printer is now beginning to print it. So if you see, it is going round in a small place. What is it doing? It is printing the tablet. So if we just see it in a 7x speed, so very rapidly we will get a tablet. Normally it's a little slower procedure. And now the tablet is made. You can see the z-axis moving down now, the third dimension. And this is the 3D printed theophylline tablet. So I go back to the slide. Yeah. So that was a tablet which you saw. So now what you have is a 3D printing community. The people who have 3D printers with them and they want to use it in various different types of applications, they normally share whatever their printing designs are, and then they are able to move further in 3D printing research. So the three most commonly used 3D printers are selective laser sintering, thermal inkjet printing, fused deposition modeling. At this moment, I'm not so much concerned about the types of printers that we have, what are the technicalities of these printers, etc. But what I'm concerned about is that you may gain an interest in. Hello? Hello?
झाला का सुरू चल तू बोल
Hello, so you all can hear me, right?
तू क्वेश्चन पाटील का टाकलं मला नाही कळलं टाकलंय ते मिनी टाकल्यावर सांगतोय
You can hear me because I can hear suddenly a lot of voices in the background. That's why I'm asking. Hello?
आता बाई
Hello?
The participants are requested to kindly switch off, keep their mobiles on the mute mode. Please.
Okay. So next we come to the benefits of 3D printing in medical application. So of course you have customization and personalization. What happened in the COVID era was that suddenly there were a demand of lot of things which were not there in enough numbers. So personalization is the key word when we talk about 3D printing, because what can you do? You can use or make something which you like, it is made to order solutions. So something which you never had in enough numbers, you can overnight step up or even design, customize, and make and deliver. So that was something which was required the most in the COVID era, because there were a number of items which were not used at all earlier, and suddenly there is a lot of requirement of these. What are these items? All over the country, there are doctors, nurses that are engaging in crisis management, and they're trying to make the most out of meager resources that are available to them. Many hospitals, they are at risk of being overrun with COVID-19 cases, and they are trying their best to flatten the curve and manage as best as possible and send patients back home as quickly as possible, so that the requirement of hospital beds, whatever facilities, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, etc., is maximized. So in this era, one of the greatest issues that existed is the lack of ventilators to treat these patients. Now, how 3D printing has come to the fore, how it has helped, is that it has significantly impacted the ventilator shortage by giving all the vital parts. There were a lot of ventilators that were there, but then maybe a small part of the ventilator is missing, or it's not functioning properly, or it is a disposable item in the ventilator and it is required now in a larger number. So immediately 3D printing was the first emergency input that could be given. That was the first line of action that could be taken in giving or addressing the shortage of these vital parts of the ventilator. So these are some data that I want to share with you. In
Able to see the
2017,
screen.
The
Hello, ma'am.
3D printing market was 0.84 billion. But in 2022, it was predicted that it is going to grow to 1.88 billion. This prediction was made in 2017. But who knew that COVID is going to come somewhere in between? And what we were predicting in 2022, probably this is already happening in 2020. 2020 has become that figure which we were expecting, the market that was expected in 2022. So this was the growth, and this was how 3D printing medical devices were there region-wise, where blue represents America, green represents Europe, and yellow is the Asia Pacific area. So you could see that throughout there was a consistent growth that was happening, and this was predicted for 2022. But somehow, because of this COVID, now 3D printing has suddenly come in a big way. So what all are the applications in 3D printing? We have a huge market for medical devices that you can see. What are these medical devices? They could be these ventilator parts that are required. They could be the ventilator itself that is required. They could be goggles. They could be face masks. They could be respirators. Then they could be swabs. They could be many small parts that are required in any sort of a health setting which is not available in enough numbers. Then we have our biologics. Biologics could be, let us say, in COVID, you don't require it so much, but a lot of research is going on with biologics as well. Suppose you want to do your research on something like lung tissue. Now, this lung tissue, it can be grown 2D in a Petri plate where you have cells. Cell line studies are done. But if you want the tissue, if you want it to be 3D, it can be 3D printed as a biologic. If we have time at the end, I can come back to these slides where I can go to these very places of the FDA where you can see so much of research going on for COVID. And of course, you can have 3D printed drugs that are available. So these are the three major medical applications, medical devices, biologics, and drugs, which can be 3D printed. 3D printing medical device market, it has a lot of components. Components could be your 3D printers, 3D bioprinters, which can print, let us say, tissue. Then the materials that are required for 3D printing, the plastics, the thermoplastics, the polymers, the metals, the biomaterials, ceramics, paper, wax, software, etc. All this is required that will go into the 3D printing medical devices. So just like you have people, CNF agents, you have sales representatives, etc., dealing with drugs, there should be pharmacy personnel who are also dealing with 3D printing medical devices in the market. And for that, you need a basic knowledge of the same so that you're able to educate people on what all can be done with these devices and how they are now an important or a vital part of the pharmaceutical industry. Similarly, 3D printing medical devices, there are a number of different types of printers that you have, different types of machines that you have. So at this moment, I'm not going into details like selective laser melting, laser sintering. Basically, what do you require? You require that whatever drug that you have and whatever excipients that you're able to bind them or fuse them or melt them or sinter them together. And for this type of technology, we have various different types of printers that are required. Then, what are the different types of products that are available in the market? We have dental guides, cranial, maxillofacial guides, orthopedic, surgical instruments, retractors, scalpels, surgical fasteners, prosthetics implants, custom orthopedic implants, custom dental implants, cranial-maxillofacial implants, and tissue engineering products. I'll be talking much more in detail about a few of these which are important, but then this was just to give you an overview that The number of applications that we have of 3D printing in pharmacy are immense. And where are we at the moment? Are we handling even a fraction of these, or have we given all of this to the engineers?
Sorry to interrupt, ma'am.
So, yes,
Your screen is not visible, ma'am.
Screen is not visible.
my screen is not visible. You can
Yes.
just hear my voice. That's it.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
You can't hear
No, no, ma'am.
you can't see the
We can see
screen.
the video. No, ma'am, we cannot see the screen.
You can
Madam,
see the video means you can see the presentation.
Your
See you, madam, but on not the
after your
screen.
video,
You can't see the presentation,
Madam,
or can you see the presentation?
No, we cannot see the PPT.
You can't see the
Slides are not seen.
madam, after
Just a
your
moment.
video clip, there was no presentation.
Pardon?
After
Okay,
your
after
video
the
clip, video clip was over.
Just
After
give me
that,
a
there was
moment.
no
Just give me a
presentation.
So should I log in again in the meeting?
And you can keep your video in the mute mode, madam, so that the screen will be seen. Am I right, Dr. Dilnawaz?
No, ma'am, she has to share the screen. There is an option next to the video.
That
Now can
that
you see my
screen
screen?
she has.
Now you can see
Share
my
the
screen.
content.
So I will share again.
Yes, share the content.
Please
Just
share it
click on.
again. Please share it again.
Okay, now you can see.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the first slide is there now.
yeah, the first slide is there, and so I don't know what to do. Should I be repeating? Were you all following whatever I said, or should I go back and?
No, please don't repeat. You can continue.
Just
Yeah.
the slide sharing from the after the video.
After the video. Okay, so very quickly I will share those slides. Okay, so over here, these were the figures that I was showing you that the 3D printing market is growing quite a lot, and in 2017 it was only
Dr. Shubhini, you can do the slideshow so that the whole screen is covered with the slide.
yeah.
F5. Yeah.
Okay, so over here you can see this was the scenario of 3D printing in 2017. The market was 0.84 billion, and this was the predicted market for 2022, and which I told you that which we've already reached now. And this is how rapidly the 3D printing market, medical devices, is growing by region. So this blue is North America, green is Europe, and the light green is Asia Pacific. That is where we are. But then the market was growing everywhere very rapidly. I was just talking to you about these three things that we have: medical devices. This is the major application of 3D printing. Then we have biologics, another major application, and drugs. So these are the three things which we as pharmacy personnel should be interested in. So after I finish the presentation, maybe we can come back and we can visit the FDA site together where they talk about COVID and biologics or COVID and medical devices, drugs, etc. Or you can take a snapshot of this slide and you can visit it yourself because it's already there in the public domain. So these were the various lists of 3D printing medical market. What were the components that were required that I had discussed with you? I don't think I need to go through them again. These were the various 3D printing medical devices, like what are the different types of technology that are available for 3D printing. And this is what I was discussing with you, that we have surgical guides, dental guides, scalpels, custom made implants, etc. I will be discussing quite a few of these again in detail, so it's okay. You have not really missed much when the screen was not there. I also told you that a central hub has been made where all the 3D printing people have come together. Now, this has specially been done for COVID. All the 3D printing community has come together and they have made a Google Sheet where they gather from all corners of the world all the 3D printing services that are available for components like oxygen valves, etc. Especially these respirators or the valves required for that. That was something which was really in short supply. So the community has got together to help out in the entire world. And there is also a submission form available from the makers. So all the people who make, they have come together, and if there is any supply which any country needs, they can get in touch with these people and they will make whatever component that you require if they can. So this is how COVID has brought the world together. Now, this is something very interesting that I read. Be anywhere, print virtually anything. So this is the strength of 3D printing, that you can print what you want. If you can think about it, if it is an object, then definitely you can define the X, Y, and Z axis, make it into a file, put the file into the printer, and the print will rapidly give you a prototype. The problem that you have is the strength enough? Is the elasticity enough? Is it performing the function that you require? So those things are there. But if you simply require a physical object like a valve, which does not do anything, all you need is the 3D contouring. So if this 3D contouring is there, then there is absolutely no problem. You can be anywhere and you can print virtually anything. Okay. So the workforce and partners are prepared to work around the clock to meet the need for 3D printers, material including biocompatible material and 3D printed parts. Okay, so there was an Italian, if you remember, Italy was one of the worst hit when this COVID happened, when it came, the virus attack. So there was a hospital in Italy which had 250 patients which requiring ventilators, and they had run out of these respiratory valves that are needed to connect the patient to the machines. So the original supplier was unable to meet this sudden high demand. So Isinova is a 3D printing company, engineering firm. So they decided that they should pitch in and try to do something. So the CEO of this company, he visited the hospital, he looked at the demand of what kind of valve is required, then they rapidly created a prototype, then they tested it on one patient successfully, then they set up a local manufacturing to mass produce these valves, and then along with Lunati's 3D printers and Istanova's in-house 3D printers, they put together 100 valves in 24 hours. And these valves are currently being used by this Italian hospital. These are the valves. You can see the picture. This was the valve that was made. So, especially for parts such as these, where you do not have too much of mechanics, all that is required is this physical object. But if you were to manufacture it, probably the industry will take a long time to do something like this, because they are making different components and they are getting it together finally to give you one object. But once you 3D print it, what you are getting is a seamless object at one go. So every component that goes into making is being made at one go, because you're defining it in the form of a file which is compatible with a 3D printer. Okay. So this sounds very good that Istinova did such a great job, and then there were these 250 patients in Italy which were taken care of. They immediately got the services of a ventilator which normally they would not have got. The flip side is that it is intellectual property rights infringement, because normally it would have been some other company's IP right. But I believe even in IP, there are some things which if you do selflessly, not for profit, and if the situation demands, then probably you can set aside everything and manufacture what you want. So this was definitely a special situation. This was not a situation which under normal circumstances would have happened. So there is a particular scientist, sadly he's in China, but he has offered to face IP lawsuit on behalf of clinicians looking to 3D print patented components for ventilators or respirators, as they are called. So this firm expects that there's another company, prescient, to bioprint lung tissue to accelerate COVID-19 research. This is another area which we need to understand, that 3D bioprinted and other 3D tissue models made with lung cells, including patients' own cells, can be used as a clinical trial in a dish, and it can enable quick testing of potential COVID-19 therapies. If success is got in a dish on the patient's own cell, then probably a person can go ahead with the treatment. So, despite the various existing methods of testing respiratory viruses in vitro, we require a more effective platform of testing, because the testing window that happens normally in a period of 1, 2, 3 years, this window has to be really shortened and the gap is very less. So, in this small window, what can be done? The patient's own cells are taken out, they are grown into a 3D tissue, they are tested, and then if the person responds, maybe that type of a treatment can be given. So this is definitely something wonderful, the creation of precise artificial respiratory models through 3D bioprinting technology. It definitely gives us a alternative. This was the respiratory epithelium that was being talked about, which was made 3D. Now, these are 3D printed face shields. You can see over here the visor sort of a thing, and there is a something which can be put on the head. So you must have seen many such models which were 3D printed, especially for medical personnel, where apart from the N95 masks, just to ensure that the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are not in any way in contact with any droplet nuclei, you need a face shield. So for these frontline workers, 3D printed face shields were made everywhere across the world. 3D printers were, because such type of face shields till now did not exist. If they did exist, they were in very few numbers. They could not have been given to n number of health workers that came to the front to tackle COVID. So the health crisis caused by COVID-19 has led to an emergency solution that under normal circumstances would not be considered. So one such approach is the conversion of a French sportswear and goods manufacturing company, Decathlon. I think Decathlon has a lot of stores in India also, so the name is not new to us. So what did Decat do? It converted its snorkeling mask, that is a sport, snorkeling. So snorkeling masks were converted into an emergency last resort respirator using a 3D printed valve. So I think that that's a wonderful solution that Decathlon came up with, because then whatever snorkeling masks that were already there, all it needed to do was to put a 3D printed valve in place and convert it into a respirator. So, more than 5,000 pairs of 3D printed safety goggles have been fabricated and donated to Chinese hospitals. This has also been done, and they expect to ramp up their. They were the most prepared, probably, so then they are able to do this even more efficiently. Over here, you can see a person, 3D goggles, a 3D visor, sort of a mask, gloves. All this is 3D printed. This is another application which I would like to share with you, 3D printed quarantine rooms. So this room is specially meant, I mean, what is the arrangement that's required? It's somewhat like a kiosk where you can physically put a person into a room and will not come in contact with anybody else. So then this one looks very sturdy to me, and you can see that it is being taken on a truck, so that means it is very much portable. All you need to do is to go and put it in the place where you want to quarantine these people, and this thing is entirely 3D printed. Now, testing swabs. Even in India, there is a lot of hue and cry about what are the number of tests that have been done for COVID. So, what is required? A thing like this, where this swab is put into the mouth, and then the patient is tested whether it's positive or negative. So these testing swabs also are required in huge numbers. So this Pharm Labs is mobilizing its community of users to deploy nearly 1,000 printers to quickly mass produce these swabs, as well as other important personal protective equipment. PPE, personal protective equipment, again in COVID is something which is really in short supply, and which 3D printing can come to the fore and help out. So over here, you can see a ventilator which is 3D printed and it is working. This is the team of scientists who did this work. So talking about CEO Lorusso, on LinkedIn, he said that we have received dozens of requests of help for critical components. We are supporting everyone for free. More than 25 machines in all the building are working day and night to produce all our support to face the emergency COVID-19 situation. And if anybody needs these, please contact them. So these are the things. I mean, this is how people came out to help, and 3D printing was definitely one technique which showed how that if you are in a firefighting mode, when you do not have things in place, what can you do? You can rapidly prototype, test your prototype, and start manufacturing. So this is a manual ventilator, which was with the help of 3D printed parts converted into an automatic ventilator. Again, it was only 3D printing with which this could be done. So even UK's Manufacturing Technology Association has provided an update about how, yeah, okay, so let me continue. I think some questions have started coming in, so I'll be taking the questions at the end of the session. So they have provided an update about how significant UK industrial technology and engineering businesses from across aerospace, automotive, and medical sectors, they have come together to produce medical ventilators in the UK. Okay, so the most powerful printers at DLR can produce up to 10 protective masks, so 15 valves for ventilators per day. And by networking institutes and facilities, it will be possible to produce much larger quantity. Okay, so you can see that ventilators, personal protective equipment, swabs, masks, gloves, all this with the help of 3D printing, which was what was required the most and is required the most in the present situation. Over here, you can see an intubated patient, and he is using a respirator which has been made by 3D printing. So, definitely, this was something, I mean, which was actually used on the patients. Now, all this that I have been sharing with you was happening either in Italy or US or UK. So, then the natural question that comes to our mind is, where is India? What are we doing? So, it is very heartening to know that we are not very far behind. Several universities and institutions across India are now using 3D printers to make face shields as well as ventilator splitters or those valves that are required. Okay, so this was happening in India, and this was the news in India. Now, which are the institutions that these are? These are IITs, there are NITs, they are design institutions. My daughter happens to be a design student, and they have 3D printers in every lab. Now, my question to our community is that isn't a medical device something meant to be made by the pharmacy personnel who understand medical devices the most? Aren't drugs and all the drug components and the medical devices our domain? Definitely, they are our domain, and that is why we need to mainstream ourselves and understand that 3D printing is something which we should use. We should not leave it to the mechanical engineers or the other electronic and electrical engineers, etc. when it comes to medical applications. So, here is a company, DBZ, divided by Zero Technologies in Navi Mumbai. which manufactures industrial 3D printers. It is in overdrive to produce face shields to protect healthcare workers on the front line from potential COVID-19 infection. This company was started in 2013, and the owner of the company, Swapnil, what he says is that suddenly he started getting calls from a team at IIT Mumbai, clients like Tata Motors, asking him if he'll be able to assist in building ventilators, face shields, UV sterilization robots. This is one thing which I have not discussed till now. So, mind you, even UV sterilization robots using 3D printing. And he says, what Swapnil says is that after the COVID-19 crisis is over, 3D printing will not be the same again, because people have understood that under emergency, here is something which can be utilized, and the emergencies can change, but the constant can be the 3D printer. So, similarly, Boson Machines, another company which is Mumbai based, is also 3D printing protective face masks, minimize risk of infection among patients. What are they using? They are using two components: a plastic helmet made of polylactic acid and a zero point 0.4 mm transparent sheet made of polyvinyl chloride. So over here you can see is that what are you using? You are using stuff like polylactic acid and polyvinyl chloride, which is not something alien to us. It is available in all our labs. So all you required was that 3D printer and these two components, and you required that file, the 3D file, with which you could have given the design and printed out what is being done. So, what are we faced with at the moment? According to a report, the country has only 50,000 ventilators, and already our patients have gone up to somewhere around 80,000. Obviously, all of them do not require ventilators, but the way that the cases are increasing in the near future, God forbid, but we may require all of these ventilators. And what can we do? We would need splitters. We would need these valves where one ventilator can be used for more than one patient. So, how can this be done? There is a Bengaluru based startup which is making ventilator splitters using 3D printing. He has tried it out on Aster Hospital, where the splitter can be in 50-50 ratio. That means two patients will get 50-50 of the oxygen that is being given through the ventilator. But if one patient's condition begins to worsen, then the splitter can be changed and the oxygen supply can be made into 30-70 or maybe 80-20, depending upon the condition of the patient. So these different types of valves, they can be made available through 3D printing. One more newspaper cutting that I'm sharing with you. Coronavirus, Chennai's 3D printing community makes face shields for healthcare workers. So it's happening. Coimbatore-based company manufactures 3D printing face shields. So they did it in Chennai, they did it in Coimbatore, they did it in Bangalore, Mumbai. Wherever we have these 3D printers, there were people who rushed out to help. Okay. So now what more does this 3D printing do apart from the COVID situation that we are tackling, and how the entire world community of 3D printing has come together to try to help? What more can be done? Of course, the cost of production remains the same. If you have printed the first only one product, or if you have made 10, the cost of printing is going to remain the same, because for one item you just need little material, you make that material 10 times and you're able to do. So traditional manufacturing methods will require a big company setup where you will have certain molds, and then from those molds you'll be making various parts, you will be assembling those parts, getting them together, and then making whatever you are making. So over here, all that is taken care of, and you do not need a very big setup. Okay. So this is especially true for small size standard implants such as prosthetics like spinal, dental, craniofacial disorders. So something which we have been making by hand, let us say like a tooth, you need at least 5 to 6 visits to the dentist to make dentures. or even one tooth that needs an implant. But over here, if you take the X-ray and you know exactly how the denture's shape needs to be, all you need to do is to print out the dentures and needs one visit to the dentist to fit you up with those perfectly made, customized dentures that are going to be available. So that is the wonderful output that you can get from a 3D printer. So now coming to drug delivery, I'm a pharmaceutics person. So definitely I'm interested in what can you make? Can you make tablets? I already shared a video with you where we saw theophylline tablets getting made. So the regular dosage forms, of course, we can mass produce them. That's okay. But suppose you want to customize, suppose you want to give personalized medication. So suppose this 10 mg tablet has to be given as an on-demand 1 mg tablet because the drug may be just 1 mg. But the minimum that we can require for weighing is 10 mg. So what are we doing? We are adding a lot of excipients and then we are making a bigger tablet. But the therapeutic moiety is definitely in a very small quantity. But when it comes to 3D printing, you can even customize very small quantities and make much smaller tablets if you want, or maybe put them all together in one tablet. So if you're taking 3 medication, you can put them together into one tablet. If there is no antagonistic reaction amongst these, so you can take all of them together in one single tablet, and it will be good for the patient also because the patient is satisfied that he just took one tablet. Because there's a lot of psychology involved when it comes to treating a patient. So then a person who's taking 6 tablets in the morning automatically feels that I am very sick and my days are numbered because I'm taking so much medication. That very patient, if you just say that all you need to take is one tablet, come on, you're okay, you'll be fine soon, the person becomes better. Okay. So 3D printing, definitely you've already seen how fast it can be. So I don't think I need to tell you about that. Then democratization and collaboration. You have a very nice 3D printing community in place where they're all interconnected and they can easily share their designs, they can come up with solutions. So collaboration is definitely something which is very good about this community. Normally, because customization is not possible, and that is why collaboration is also not so easily possible because people are normally specializing in a particular kind of product. But when it comes to 3D printing, you can customize and get your output according to that. Then, so what can you make? You can 3D print bones, ears, exoskeleton, windpipes, jawbone, eyeglasses, cell culture. You can take stem cells and make them multiply, blood vessels, vascular networks, tissues, organs, as well as novel dosage forms and drug delivery systems. All this can be done with 3D printing. Now coming to bioprinting tissues and organs. Okay, so what is bioprinting? What are we able to do? Definitely, there is a huge problem of donors and organ failures that happens. So let us say that a person's kidney is damaged. You start looking for a kidney donor. That person has to be biocompatible with you. It may happen that you do not get some such donor, so you keep waiting, and sometimes even affordability is an issue because there's a huge surgery that's going on, and then the other person who gives a kidney is also under much trauma and family pressure that why are you taking this chance, why are you giving an organ. So definitely it's a huge issue, and especially when it happens with somebody very young. I've seen a couple of my students even in BPharm, they had some such liver problem, kidney problem, and then they succumb. And I've seen multiple cases where this happens. I know how much trauma it is for the patient. Sometimes their parents, their mother, they give that organ, and then too the longevity of that patient sometimes is not so much. There are cases, of course, where they have been brilliantly handled and they've lived very productive lives. But there also have been cases where they definitely there is a loss of life, there's so much trauma to the family, and of course the huge expenses that are involved. So these are problems. So definitely something wonderful would be if we would be able to 3D print taking cells from the person, multiply them, grow them into an organ, and give them back to the patient. That is where we have to reach when we talk about bioprinting. Mind you, we have yet not reached there, but we are going to get there. Don't worry, it's not very far. So there's something regarding cells, like let us say that you take cells and you take some cross-linked polymer, this together, these cross-linked polymers and these cells in a viable atmosphere will give you your 3D printing ink. This bio ink, it is called bio ink. So you take this bio ink, you put it into the various types of printers that you have, and then you make it into the shape that you want. So I don't know if you all have seen the movie Chapak, but definitely even if you've not seen it, I have not seen it, but I have met personally, since this was about something which happened in Lucknow. So I met some of those acid attack survivors, and for them it took years and years of surgery, and the skin was taken from various different parts of the body and it was transplanted to reconstruct their faces so that they're able to see properly, they're able to eat food properly, they're able to move their mouths properly. So all that required skin grafting. So the skin was harvested maybe from the thigh or a portion of the leg or the stomach, and it was put on the face, and then the face was recreated as best as possible through many small surgeries. So you can understand the kind of trauma that a person goes through when some such incident happens. But in the case of 3D printing, skin, because it does not require, it's not a very complex organ, it's a very flat straight sheet that's required. So 3D printing of skin is very much possible, and it's a big boon for burn patients, etc., accident patients, where skin can be used with the help of 3D printing. Organ printing, we were just talking about. But in organ printing, the problem is that there is a lot of vasculature, etc. So you have these nerves that are going there, the veins, the arteries, all that is there inside that organ. We have not yet been able to reach that finesse where all this connects one to one. So every single artery and every single vein, if you are able to stitch them together so that there is a seamless blood flow through the organ, then we will have reached, we will have arrived when it comes to organ printing. So replacement of organs, I just talked about it. So 3D bioprinting is yet in its infancy, but definitely we will get there. So the procedure for bioprinting organs that has emerged is you create a blueprint of an organ with its vascular architecture. You generate a bioprinting process plan. You isolate stem cells. You differentiate stem cells into organ-specific cells. You prepare bioink reservoirs with organ-specific cells, blood vessel cells, and support medium. Load them into the printer. Bioprint. Place the bioprinted organ in a bioreactor prior to transplantation. Okay. So this was something which I found very interesting, and I thought that I would share with you. This is a 3D printing of a prosthetic Iron Man arm. Okay, so a small child, Robert Downey Jr., he's only 7 years old, and if he has to have a prosthetic arm, so if this Iron Man arm was given to him, and I can understand that that boy must have felt so happy because he had something special. Instead of a normal arm which he was missing, he got something which was so much better than what other children have. He had an Iron Man arm. So this is such a beautiful way of turning an adverse situation into something positive. And this was made possible with the help of 3D printing. Similarly, bones, cartilages, etc., with the help of an X-ray. Let us say that this person has broken his jaw. a 3D printed jaw with the help of X-ray can be created and it can be put in place. So this is possible, recreating how a person would have looked. If you have the skull, then probably with 3D printing, you will be able to recreate how the person was looking. So even in forensic science, etc., then some recreation is done, the missing parts are put, and then what the person would have normally looked like, that is also created. Okay, so replacement of cartilages, bones, replacement of organs, we've already been talking about this, medical devices, small little parts of so many things like catheters, valves, etc., which are required. All of these, they can be 3D printed very, very easily. Organ printing, I've been talking about, a lot has been happening. So, director in Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, he began growing human bladder cells on biodegradable scaffolds in his lab, and the cells formed a kind of pouch which he successfully implanted around the bladder of 7 children with poor bladder function and relieved their condition of poor bladder function because there was support to the bladder of those children. Okay? So the question is no longer whether we will succeed. The question is only how soon will we succeed. So that is something which we need to look out for. So over here again, what I have been talking about all this while, the image of a patient bone or cartilage which is deformed, then the CAD model, how the bone should be, then the patient's cell are harvested and expanded in culture, then the bioink containing the biomaterial is prepared, and these cells are encapsulated within bioink ready for 3D printing. Then that construct is formed through 3D printing, and then it is tested in vitro or implanted in vivo for the patient. So this is a summary of the process that is already happening. Now, talking a little more about bioinks, you can see that in a petri dish, we are able to grow a cell. We call it a 2D culture in a petri dish. Okay? Because you have a planar place, the bottom of the petri dish is the surface that you get where you can grow these cells. But once you take a 3D structure and a complicated network, because what do? You take living cells and you take a biomaterial that mimics the extracellular matrix. You put these together. These living cells begin to grow with the biomaterial matrix, and then they support addition, they support proliferation, and they support differentiation. When this happens, then what do you get? You get your 3D bioink structure. Maybe it could be an organ, it could be skin, whatever we are doing. So what all do we require then in this bioink? You need a print temperature that should not exceed physiological temperature. You need a mild cross-linking or gelatin condition, and you need bioactive components that are non-toxic and are able to be modified by the cells after printing. Okay. These are a few techniques that can be used. Over here you can see a scaffold that was made for an ear, and then how the cells were made to grow and the ear is looking almost perfect. So if at all it does not have any other function, but at least it looks natural. So cosmetically, it will definitely give the person a lot of confidence. And of course, the physical function of attracting the sound waves and concentrating them into the ear will also happen. So the challenge, of course, is building 3D vascularized organs. I've already told you. But when the thickness of the engineered tissue exceeds 150 to 200 micrometers, it surpasses the limitation for oxygen diffusion between the host and the transplanted tissue. So anything less than this, we are able to deal with properly. More than this, we have to get there. These are various tissue models: cartilage, bone, skin, blood vessels, muscles. The cells that have been used are mesenchymal stem cells, chondrocytes, mesenchymal stem cells. So you can all this is available in the public domain. But how this thing got me interested was I met a scientist who's a friend of mine. I met him in Barcelona. He had 3D printers. He's a pharmacist. He's now teaching in UK. And then he came down to my institution where he gave us a presentation about 3D printing and how they were making tablets with 3D printing. And even in COVID, I got mails from him where they were making valves, he's making all these things. So it really got me interested that these pharmacy people in UK, they are utilizing 3D printers such a lot. Why are we not able to do the same? So ever since this meeting has happened, now I am really busy. I like to talk about this as much as possible so that people understand that 3D printers are now required, or maybe the Pharmacy Council of India decides to put a 3D printer instead of putting an IR, which we can get anywhere. Excuse me, please. The chemistry people must be very furious with me when I say this. But 3D printer is something I think that pharmacy people need so much more, because it is definitely something of our domain and we are not using it practically. And that is why India is lacking behind in some of this research. So this is another link where 3D printed heart was created. I'm not going to go it because I think that we do not have that much time. So you can definitely go on your own and see. It's all very interesting. Okay, so even for surgery, when a surgeon is prepared, he's preparing for surgery, what he can do is to prepare a 3D model and plan out what exactly he is going to do once he opens the organs. So before surgery, definitely a doctor does not have all the time to experiment once he has opened up a certain organ. So if that can be done, if a practice session, especially in complicated surgeries, if a practice session can be held with a 3D printed organ, definitely a doctor will have very clearly in his mind how he is going to approach a particular problem, because each person is different, and for a surgeon, each process is different. So maybe there is a tumor, all tumors are differently shaped. So how do you protect that person and then get a successful surgery? This can be done also with 3D printed organs. Okay, researchers at the National Library of Medicine generate digital files from clinical data such as CT scans that are used to make custom 3D printed surgical and medical models. So what kind of a thing that you require, you can create it and see. So over here you can see a 3D model used for surgical planning by a neurosurgeon at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Over here you can see a 3D printed representation of an influenza heme agglutinin trimer. So you can see what are the places where docking can be, what is it, what is the structure like, what needs to be complexed, what needs to be addressed, so that you can get. So influenza, flu is a viral disease. Similarly, maybe we can try for COVID, or somebody out there in this community is already trying for COVID. So complex drug release profiles are also possible. That means that when you put layers, you can put different types of layers that you require. Okay, and of course, advantage of 3D printing includes the precise control, high reproducibility, the ability to reproduce dosage forms with complex drug release profiles, and personalized medicine. This is the CAD model for 3D printing of a tablet. Zip dose. This is also very interesting, but now I'm scared to go to zip dose. What if the if the video goes off again, then I'll be wasting some more of your time. But please write down zip dose, all you students, and go and see. It's a very interesting video of a oro dispersible tablet. What over here is done is that first a bed of powder is made, and that powder is the drug, and then there are circular droplets of a binder. So when this powder is moving, very precise droplets of binder are put, and then each one of these is a fast dissolving tablet that you get. It's like a wafer. A lot of these wafers are put together to make a tablet, and so you just need one mouthful, not even a mouthful, you just need a very small quantity of water to make this tablet disperse. That is why it is called zip dose, because it's very, very quick acting. So it's a fast release tablet. And definitely, if you get it, I mean, if you look at it, it's so interesting that you would want to probably just make 3D printed tablets, not the conventional tablets anymore. So these are some other shapes of tablets that are possible. A pyramid shaped tablet is something which is very difficult to make with our conventional technology because the tip can break off. But with the case of 3D technology, you can easily do it, and then the fast release you get with the tip, and then slow release you get with the bottom of the pyramid. So these are also things which you can do. Okay. So, for the chemistry people, students who have also logged in, I am not very sure if they are there, but there is a Harvard Hughes Medical Institute which has developed new 3D printer that can synthesize 14 different classes of small molecules using a set of chemical building blocks. So, it is not just bioinks, it is not just the dosage forms, it is also a chemical drug that we are able to synthesize with the help of 3D printing. So, entirely new formulations can be made. Diseases like, let us say, tuberculosis, the implant, a bone implant, like bone tuberculosis, is definitely a big problem. For that, what can be done? Rifampicin and isoniazid releasing bones can be put into the body. How they can be made? They can be made with 3D printing. Or they can print an antibiotic micro pattern on a paper, which has been used as a drug implant. So, just 3D printed an antibiotic, and it has been used as an implant to eradicate Staphylococcus epidermidis, which is on the skin for skin infection. Okay, so till now, everything that I have been sharing with you is very rosy. It looks like 3D printing is the best technology in the world and we should leave back everything else. But no, this is not the case. There are thorns, there are barriers, there are controversies. So, probably there is a lot of hype also and a lot of expectation also that the community has. So maybe that in all this excitement, the projections that we give are kind of unrealistic, like exciting possibilities such as organ printing and all when they become a reality. But this much I'm already assured of that somewhere in the future it will become a reality. Now, the safety and the security and the legal issues that we have. Like, let us say somebody has a 3D printer and he starts printing out guns or gun magazines or master keys of a bank or ATM skimmers. That is the flip side of 3D printing technology, which definitely it merits serious concern because if every home starts having a 3D printer, God knows what the fertile minds of our country will come up with. So there's always so much positive and there's always so much negative. So what is it that we can do? We have to come up with solutions that how can we regulate this whole affair so that it only works for the good of the society and it does not go as something which is going to be misused by society. Of course, regulatory concerns are also there because then how about intellectual property rights? How is that going to be tackled if somebody spends a lot of time in researching out and making something and patenting it, and then somebody comes along and then prints it out with 3D? Definitely, it will not be a good thing. So, patent, copyright, all that is an issue. The legal permissions are an issue. So, to conclude with, 3D printing is definitely a transformative tool. And as printer performance, resolution, available material, as they increase, the applications will also increase. The researchers will keep improving upon the existing medical applications and they will keep exploring new ones. And the medical advances that have been made using 3D printing are already significant. And there's definitely a revolution out there which we need to follow. The future trend, of course, is customized nutritional products, organs, and drugs, and 3D printing in every medical store so that a patient just goes and I says that I take BP medication, I take diabetes medication, and I take these multivitamin pills. The person sitting in the pharmacy is able to make one drug from all what the prescription has and hand out to the patient. So this is what probably the future trend is going to be. So if most common medications become available in this way, patients might be able to reduce their medication burden to one polypill per day, which would promote patient compliance as well, which is definitely an issue with all of us, especially when it comes to things like antibiotics, etc. So that is there. So the three R's that we have is regulation, research, and resource. These are the three things that we need. These are some very important sites which I just noted in case you all are interested. But anyways, if you start reading, there's a lot available out there which you can, especially about coronavirus and COVID. So this article, 3D printing industry, 3D printing community response to COVID-19 and coronavirus. This is an article which is presently getting updated every day. Whatever new is happening, they are updating this article every day. So this is the kind of response that coronavirus has generated in the 3D printing community. So in the end, I would like to thank all the COVID warriors that we have, and look at the pharmacists also sitting over here. So doctors, hospital staff, nurses, first responders, pharmacists, police, firefighters, so on and so forth. So a very big thank you to all the people who have listened to me today, and all the pharmacists out there, and especially the young pharmacists out there who I hope I have been able to generate some interest, that you follow this and you are able to come up with wonderful solutions in the future. So thank you and all the best. And now probably I will take a few questions from all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insights and sharing with us useful resources.
Thank you.
We will now address the questions.
Okay.
Participants
Yes, thank you,
are
Amrita.
requested to inbox the questions.
You can inbox or you can ask right away if
Yes,
your
we have
mics are. Yeah. No?
we have some questions from the
Yes.
participants.
Yeah.
Our one of participant Rohini Wagmare wants to know
Yeah.
how the raw material is procured and supplied for this printing.
Okay. So, Rohini, if you were listening to me, what I shared with you a few places, all we need is a biocompatible polymer. We do not need, so these biocompatible inks are also something which is a very growing field. The excipients that we use are normally the same that we are already using in many various different applications. So what are we doing? It's something, some polymers which are already available. It's not something new. The only thing is that it should be it should be something which is biocompatible. It should not have any toxic reactions. And I told you about the bio ink. That slide, the bio ink slide, talks about the requirement like body temperature, physiological temperature should not affect the material. That's all that you want. So you don't need something very different. It's all the very much the same. Have I satisfied you,
Yes, ma'am.
Rohini?
Ma'am, shall I take next question?
Yeah, sure.
How much is the shelf life of 3D printed material?
The shelf life is the same as the shelf life of any other material, because over here we are taking those very polymers which we would have taken in our conventional type of drug delivery systems. So shelf life is not a problem with 3D printed material.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Samreen Sheikh.
Yeah.
She wants to know, is 3D printing leads to decrease manufacturing jobs?
See, for anything, this is nowadays there is something called disruptive innovation. What is disruptive innovation? It's a complete new way of tackling something. Okay. So what happens over here is that maybe there are some people who may lose jobs if they do not reskill themselves. So this is the age and era. Let me tell you, all of you students out there, all of you have to become lifelong learners. You cannot just say that this is what was taught to me in BPharm and MPharm and I cannot learn more. So you have to keep reinventing your skills. So if 3D printing comes along, which was never heard of in our times, but I have to read it, I have to try and get it for my lab, I have to start experimenting with it, and that is how I move along. So once you reskill, there are some jobs that may go and newer jobs that may get generated. So that is how the world moves on. Change is constant.
Yes, ma'am. One more question from the same participant,
Yeah.
that anyone with the blueprint of product can
Yeah.
forge the product quickly, can
Yes.
lead to copyright infringement.
Yes, definitely it will lead to copyright infringement, because what are you doing? You are copying somebody's design. So maybe that, let us say that you need a particular valve in a particular machine. So what you need to do, you cannot change the dimensions of the valve. They have to be exactly the same because they have to fit into a machine. But if you are making a new ventilator itself, a whole new machine, you can have your own design. So these two types of applications are there. In the first case, it will be a copyright infringement, which the company will definitely have to face. But in the second case, if your design is original, there is no chance of any copyright infringement. Then there is a lot of open source innovation these days, which means that people who have these files, they put it out in the public domain for anybody to use. So that is also there. Those type of applications are also there. So I hope I have answered your query.
Yes, ma'am. The next query is, can we create a human clone so that various tests can be done on it?
Uh, I think that this is already happening. Once we had Dolly the sheep, this thing has already started. It was a sheep. It's going to be a human being. I don't know if it is going to be 3D printed or not, but cloning with totipotent cells, it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is by Rohini, ma'am. She want to know, can pharmacology experiments can be done with this?
Yes, Rohini ma'am, definitely pharmacology experiments can be done, and they should be done on such 3D scaffolds that are created, tissues that are created, because even ethical problems that are normally occurring when we are killing animals, so we are killing some living, I mean, it could be anything. It could be a small animal, it could be a big animal, it could be an animal that has been created for experiments. But why should we kill if we can do the same thing with the help of a 3D tissue, which has been created with 3D printing? So definitely, it's a very interesting way of doing pharmacology practicals, and sooner or later we will
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to make this shift.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. The next question is from Asma, madam. She want to know, will this 3D printing give any outbreak to clinical trials, or any ongoing application of 3D printing to clinical trials of drug?
I couldn't really get the question. Probably what she wants to know is if we can make a new molecule and make it reach clinical trials. Is that the question?
Yes, maybe.
Okay. So in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
case, yes, definitely. I shared one slide with you where they made 16 new molecules. They are new chemical entities which are being synthesized with the help of 3D printing. These are very small molecules at the moment, but I'm sure that once refinement happens, even bigger molecules will be made. And with the help of 3D printing, one good thing is that suppose you take all your ingredients in molar ratios, maybe there's very less wastage, maybe the reaction time becomes less. So I'm sure there are a lot of possibilities. And then some molecule that is made like that, of course, it can be tested, it can be tried, and once it passes all the regulatory requirements, then it can be sent for clinical trials as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Actually, ma'am, due to this interesting topic, so many questions we have, but due to time constraint, we are not able to take all the questions. But the remaining questions will mail to you so that participants can get their answers by mail.
Thank you so much. So probably can I go live with Kiran
Uh,
ma'am now? I'd like to talk to her, thank her. Is she
uh,
she's there?
Yeah, now I would like to request our principal, Dr. Kiran Bise, to sum up the program.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rani Putale, madam. Good afternoon, one and all. 3D printing, actually, it has been as a concept of myth for some time, but slowly it is emerging out to become a mainstream technology for the digital manufacturing across the several sectors. Dr. Shubhini madam, you have explained it in an interesting and elaborative manner, and it was the session was the question themselves, they indicate that the session was successful one, isn't it? You're live now.
Thank you, ma'am. And I wanted to talk to you not for this, but for I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity, especially to interact with our younger generation, and especially if you're able to inspire them to take up 3D printing in a bigger way. I would love to be there that day when Alana College has a 3D printer and they are making
Sure, madam. Sure,
things with it.
yes, yes, sure.
So
Here,
even
I
people who are writing projects, I think that please go ahead, try to write projects and ask for 3D printers.
Yeah,
Some of these
yeah.
3D printers, there are very cheap ones available and there are expensive ones also available. So probably you can start 3D printing at a very simple, small scale. With you can buy a printer which is only worth a few thousands, and then you can buy the more expensive ones and go for research, which is hardcore.
Definitely, madam, because it will be an encouraging for all whatever you're telling. No, my students and staff members, they're present on the board, and they will take the initiative in such kind of the projects.
Okay.
Now, on behalf of MC Society's Alana College of Pharmacy, I would like to sum up the sessions that were conducted during this 1 week program on the theme Pharma Talk COVID-19. We started the webinar series from since 7th of this May. Professor Sanju Nanda, one of our speakers, she mentioned that we have to accept this pandemic holistically. Another speaker, Professor A.P. Pawar, he spoke on the strength, weakness, opportunities and challenges in pharma sectors. And he emphasized to accept this pandemic as a challenge and to take this crisis as an opportunity to grow and learn the new things, new skills. And that is what we are doing, isn't it? Otherwise, webinar was for us at least, webinar करना है मतलब टेंशन आ जाता था. सही है ना? Professor Swarnalata Saraf, our next speaker, she highlighted the applications of mRNA technology and molecular biology in formulation development of vaccines to address the COVID pandemic. Our alumni association also, collaborated with us in arranging this kind of the webinar, and our two alumni, Mr. Ajaz Nathani, who is brand manager in one of the pharmaceuticals in Mumbai. I'm not remembering the name actually. And Mr. Rizwan Sheikh, he is from Boston Scientific. They enlightened in the change in sales and marketing scenario of pharmaceuticals post lockdown period and during this COVID-19. Actually, these interesting and wonderful sessions were a sort of intellectual treat for all of us during this compulsory vacation of 2 months. I, on behalf of Allana College of Pharmacy, extend our gratitude towards our invited speakers for sparing and sharing their valuable time and precious knowledge and data with us. This gesture of corporate social responsibility is indeed appreciable. We also extend our gratitude towards Dr. P. A. Inamdar, the president of Maharashtra Cosmopolitan Education Society, who has always encouraged us to arrange such kind of the sessions and to interact with the expertise globally. The gracious presence of Professor Irfan Sheikh, Joint Secretary MC Society, throughout these sessions, all these 6 days, have encouraged our team. Thank you, sir. The active participants, including faculty and the students throughout the country, is worth noting. Last but not the least, the coordination and teamwork of my faculty members, Dr. Kanchan Chauhan, Dr. Rani Potawle, Dr. Amrita, Mr. Rajat Sayed, Dr. Dilnawaz Pathan, is highly appreciated. Keep it up, dears. And thanks once again. Stay safe and take care. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, Kiran ma'am. See you again.
Jai Hind. See you again. And whenever the such kind of the projects will be initiated at our college, we will definitely, I'll contact you, ma'am.
Sure, anytime. It'll be a pleasure. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kanchan ma'am, Rani ma'am, bearing with me. And all
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
glitches in between.
Thank you, ma'am.
So
One
bye.
announcement
you,
is
ma'am.
there for
Thank
participants.
you.
Feedback form link will be mailed to all the participants after the completion of the session. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe. I declare the session is over.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.